Americans
It'll jump once he leaves the combine.
Kevin Tolliver is a second or third round grade. I would not draft that guy with
Pepsi's
your
parent
picks.
company is reporting higher than expected.
I'm telling you, bro, he's got talent. He's got talent.
He does, but so did Rashard Robinson, and look, he already washed out.
Slower sales of Mountain Dew and Gatorade. Consumer and business news.
Dante
Joe
Jackson,
McConnell,
third or fourth
NBC
round grade.
That's surprising.
What's up, Will?
Got drum skills.
Dunc Holder, hour number 2 on a Wednesday, Valentine's Day, February 14th. The Pelicans are in love with Emeka Okafor. Breaking news, they signed into a second 10-day contract. He will be the difference maker. I know it, right? Totally.
That is a great story, though. The guy was out of the league for how many years? 2, 3?
Yeah, like 2-3 years out of the league, yeah.
And then I saw him get in the other day and block somebody's shot and made a nice little follow-up. And he's a great guy. Former Pelicans
#1
first-round pick.
No, it wasn't the Pelicans. No.
I mean,
he was a
Hornets.
former #1 overall pick in the NBA.
Wasn't it the Hornets then? Or am I thinking of somebody else?
I think he did not start with the Hornets, but
He
former
played-
#1 overall.
He's had a couple stints with the Hornets.
National championship with UConn. And joining us right here on the show, WIll Guillory on a Wobble Wobble Wednesday. Even though, Will, they have changed the theme, pulled it right out from under me, and it's been love songs all day because it's Valentine's Day. So should I fall back in love with the Pelicans? That's my first question.
Oh, I think it maybe need to hold off a little bit. Let's see how they look tonight. But you know, it's Valentine's Day, so there's nothing wrong with falling in love. Right?
I gotta slow play this. I can't call her 15 times in a day. That would be bad. You know, preaching my love for the
you
Pelicans.
gotta make yourself hard to get. You know, you don't want to be too easy because then they'll stomp all over your heart at the end.
Well, I've easily been that already for the Pelicans this year. But look, they've at least won 2 in a row. They tried to blow it in Brooklyn while we were all away. They won 138-128. Then, nice win up in Detroit, 118-103, and they have their final game before the All-Star break tonight against the Lakers, 7 o'clock tip at the Smoothie King Center. And as we anticipated, that playoff bunch is more bunch than we've seen all season long. Just in the last 2 games, what have you seen from the Pelicans? Well, maybe more in the Detroit game. What have you seen from the Pelicans where they've been able to kind of get their act together and try to figure this thing out with Mirotic and Anthony Davis in the lineup?
Right. I think the biggest thing for them, and we talked about this a ton ever since the DeMarcus Cousins injury happened, this team had to figure out how to play a new brand of basketball, basically become a completely different team because so much of the offense it ran through DeMarcus at the top of the key, and he was such a big part of the team emotionally, on the court, off the court. And they just had to figure out how to play a different style of basketball without him. I think you see that coming together now, especially with the addition of Niko Mirotic. He's starting to fit in really well with AD. Drew Holiday is playing really well. Rondo is playing some of his best basketball of the season. So I think overall you see this team kind of recalibrating, figuring out how they need to play without DeMarcus, and they're finally starting to find some success. And also a part of that is, AD's playing MVP basketball right now. He's been unbelievable the past couple games. And if he can maintain that level, I think they have a great chance of holding on to maybe that final playoff spot.
Yeah, Will, I think you hit the nail on the head as far as Mirotic is concerned, because this is a guy that came in and in a big trade. They obviously needed him to produce right away and take some of the pressure off of AD inside. AD is thriving at his spot, but Mirotic now takes some of the pressure off, and he seems to be gaining confidence in this system by the day. I think there was a couple of little initial bobbles early on, which is to be understood. But the more he gets more comfortable, I think, with his role, the more we're going to see AD continue to blossom, and I think this whole starting lineup take off.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the most important thing for him, which is, I didn't realize this until I saw him the past few games, is the guy's very physical on the defensive end. I thought he did a great job defending Blake Griffin on Monday night. He got put out on the perimeter, switched out on some of those guards in that Nets game. He did a really great job of moving his feet. And I think having somebody that's a little more versatile, a little switchable, where now you can do a little bit more what they were doing last year before the DeMarcus trade, where you're switching more stuff on the perimeter. You're avoiding kind of having those rotations, a guy flying flying all around the court. Now he's able to kind of guard guys and keep them in front of him and allow AD to stay in front of the rim. And I think that's huge. And just having another physical presence, we're going against a guy like Blake Griffin. He's one of the more physical post players in the league, and Mirotic did a really good job of staying in front of him, making him take tough shots. And if you can have that presence down there with AD, you don't necessarily need him to guard so many of these post players. And obviously, like you mentioned before, Okafor did a great job defending Drummond in that game. But you're going to need other guys to kind of take that burden off of AD just because he has so much on his shoulders on the offensive end. And I think if he can continue, the offense will come and go. I think, the shots will be there. Sometimes he takes tough shots, so sometimes they'll go in, sometimes they won't. But if he can continue playing the way he has on the defensive end, I think that can be really important for this team.
Will Guillory covers the Pelicans for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, joining us right here on Dunc Holder. I think the most significant stat of the last game, only 11 turnovers. Jeff thinks Boogie would have committed those all by himself if he was still on the court.
He might have.
He might have. But look, Drew Holiday is always going to be a big talking point with this team because of the contract. And they're going to need him to step up. And just look at the last game, 21 and 12, 8 of 16 from the floor. And how much has he? I feel like I wait like at least a month to say how much has he kind of found his place with this team. Has he found his place with this team in this lineup that they have right now?
Yeah, I think he's playing really well. I think pretty much you can point to when Rondo came back, he's pretty much been a different guy. He's been around 20 points a game, I think, since January 1. And it's not only that he's put up the numbers, but that he's getting it so efficiently. He's getting to the basket pretty much at will. And, when teams direct so much attention towards AD, that allows Drew to kind of take the ball straight to the rim a lot of the times, and he's doing that at will. And I think having a guy that's scoring 20 a game, shooting around 50%, getting you 7, 8 assists, I think that's huge for this team because obviously you lose so much production with DeMarcus out of the lineup. And I think the most important thing for him is just to continue playing with confidence, continue finding ways to get his shot. And I think Gentry made a little bit of a mistake. I think shifting the starting lineup a few games back, taking Rondo out of the lineup, I think that kind of took Drew out of his rhythm just because when you play Drew at point guard, he has so much responsibility. I think when you play him at off guard, it allows him to kind of float in and out, do a little bit of scoring, do a little bit of playmaking, do a little bit of defense. And I think when he's allowed to do that and kind of just show all the different facets of his game, I think he can kind of become one of the better guards in this league. And I think just having that piece next to AD is so important just because, like you said before, he has so much on his shoulders, and just have somebody like Drew that can make plays and just put points on the board. It helps just giving him that second option on offense. Well,
the 2-game winning streak, both games came against Eastern Conference opponents. And I was doing a little math the other day. I mean, the Pelicans are 16-7 against the East. They're only 14-19 against the West. Now, the bad news in that is they only have 5 games left against Eastern Conference opponents, and 2 of those are against Cleveland and Boston, the 2 kingpins in the East. But why do you think that is? Is there anything to that? Is it matchups? Are there not enough big men in the East to handle AD back when Boogie was here? What do you think is behind that record?
I think that's part of it. I think before the Boogie injury happened, I think a lot of times you play against these Eastern Conference teams and they have kind of the stretch 4, kind of the smaller guys playing at the 4. Like, Boston has Marcus Morris playing there. Before the Blake Griffin trade, Detroit were playing smaller guys at the 4, and a lot of times you saw AD kind of dominate these Eastern Conference teams. And I think it's something about these Eastern Conference teams. AD, he likes dominates these. I think of the last 8 games, AD's around 36 points a game against Detroit. He had that 59-point game against them a few years back. He's known for killing a bunch of those teams out in the East. He had the huge game against the Knicks not too long ago, that Boston game as well. I think some of these teams, they just have a really tough time matching up against AD, especially if you only see him, twice a year. Some of these teams in the Western Conference, they can kind of figure out what you need to do to make things tough on him. But when you see a guy like AD maybe once, twice a year, it's a lot to deal with when you say, wow, this guy can do a whole lot. And you saw against Detroit, they just couldn't figure out what to do with him. He was getting to the rim. He was hitting shots from the perimeter, and he just plays with a ton of confidence when he knows he has somebody on him that can't really chase him around on the perimeter. And I think, like you said, the most important thing for this team going forward is they just have to play better against Western Conference teams, especially these playoff teams that they're fighting against, the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Trailblazers. They have to get wins against these teams because right now everybody in that bottom of the Western Conference, they're right around the same mark. And every win from here on out pretty much matters. It might be the difference between making it or being at home come April, or May, one of those.
Both. Hey, let's call both. Hey, WIll Guillory, NOLA.com, Times-Picayune covers the Pelicans for us. Yeah, you look at the standings, and Oklahoma City's kind of fallen back a little bit. Look, they're 32-26. Denver 31-26. Portland 31-26. The Pelicans are 30-26. Clippers 29-26, and the Utah Jazz, my goodness, won 10 in a row. They are 29-28. And Will, you look at the conference records among those teams, and the Pelicans, of all those 6 teams I mentioned, the Pelicans have the worst Western Conference record.
Yeah, and I think it's very pivotal at this point playing against some of those teams. I think Utah, like you said, they're incredibly high right now. They're playing with such a high level of confidence. So many of those guys are contributing, even after making the Rodney Hood trade. And the Clippers are in that same boat. Even after making the Blake Griffin trade, they're still playing with a ton of confidence. And I think it's going to be really tough to hold on to that spot, and this Pelicans team has to stay healthy, obviously, the rest of the way. They have to keep playing with a high level of confidence. AD has to continue playing at an incredible level that he's been at the past few weeks. And it's going to be extremely tough. And I think whichever one of those teams doesn't make the playoffs, I think it's going to be a really big disappointment just because all of them are playing so well at this point. And I think one of them is going to have to fall off at some point. I don't know which one. I mean, Utah looks like they might jump up. Who knows? They might end up 6-7 the way they're going. But there's somebody's going to end up getting left out, and they're going to be really disappointed. And the Pelicans are going to have to find a way to get wins against the Western Conference teams in order to avoid that fate.
Well, this game against the Lakers is kind of a tricky game. I mean, the Lakers are only 9-18 on the road. They're a young team, obviously, a lot of young stars that are still trying to find their way in the league, but they've won 7 of the last 10 overall. So they are playing well as a whole, and this is one of those games. It's in the Smoothie King Center. We've seen it before where you figure on paper the Pels should win, but if they don't come out with the right, energy and effort, they could have their hands full tonight. How do you see this game and this matchup tonight?
Yeah, I think the Lakers are kind of similar to when you see that Brooklyn team the Pelicans played a few nights back, where when you look at the roster, they don't have a bunch of names that jump out at you, but every night they're able to go out and put 105, 110 on the board. They're able to run every night. They put up a bunch of threes, and they can have those moments where they look really bad on offense, and then they can have those moments where they get really hot. And I think the Pelicans at times have difficulty with those teams because they, like against the Nets a couple of nights ago, where they're kind of blowing them out and then they get relaxed, and all of a sudden the Nets knock down a bunch of threes, and it's a tie ball game in the fourth quarter. And I think a lot of times the Pelicans kind of deal with, they have a hard time kind of maintaining that energy, their activity throughout the course of an entire game. Part of that is, they put so much on their top guys, and it's hard to maintain that throughout the course of a game. So I think a big part of tonight is just continue to get contributions for that bench. I think Ian Clark, Darius Miller, some of those guys have been playing really well since DeMarcus has been injured, and they're going to need those guys tonight because they're expecting AD and Drew to kind of do everything again tonight. I think it'll be tough just because that Lakers team is so young, they're feisty. The Julius Randles, the Brandon Ingrams, those guys can give you difficulty some nights. So if they can get contributions from some of those role guys tonight, I think it'll be tough just for the Lakers to keep up with them. Obviously, it's the last game before the All-Star break. A lot of guys are ready to just get that game over with and get on to their vacation. So if the Pelicans just kind of, put their foot on the gas pedal early on, kind of put this Lakers team, if they can get up double digits early on this team, I think it'll be a good way for them to kind of go into the All-Star break and just have a 3-game win streak and just feel good about yourself overall, even after the DeMarcus Cousins injury.
I'm just glad we didn't have to mention LeVar Ball. WIll Guillory, NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune. Oh, and I just blew it. Oh, that's my bad. And now all of a sudden he's going to show up here and he's going to fight the King Cake Baby, or he's going to be the King Cake Baby. They're going to keep it one game longer just for him.
Is that thing still roaming around? It's not going to be there tonight, is it? We're officially
Mardi Gras over.
Mardi Gras over, bro.
LeVar Ball might fight King Cake Baby, though. Might happen.
I wouldn't know who to root for in that.
Well, it doesn't matter because they both have large heads.
I mean, and there's Clyde.
Gosh.
Wow.
Clyde with the damn bombshell.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Will.
it, buddy.
I appreciate you guys, and I will not say his name either, so we can keep that streak going.
Good deal. All right, great stuff as always. Will Guillory, follow him on Twitter at Will Guillory. Does a tremendous job covering the Pelicans, and I heard hope there. I heard it. Hope. That's what I heard.
You should have it. The Lakers are a newly
comes Mr.
retooled
Hope
team
over here.
anyway, so
Mr. Glass half full.
Don't worry, I'll watch tonight, and something will go awry. I'm
yeah.
sure.
And then you'll want to jump off like
I watched the Nets, and they didn't blow that, so there you
It's
go.
incredible.
you
6
want to
teams.
jump off like a Kardashian from one NBA player to the other.
Oh, my.
Oh, God, go to break, please.
Oh, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Clyde is on fire. We're Dunc Holder.
Fire.
We need